Good morning. We have a quorum and we've reached the appointed hour. This is the meeting of the ESC. This is the 5th of December. We have two agenda items today which require our approval. And then there is an item which has 3 information paper. It is about the forecast of proposed creation, deletion of Directorate posts in 2012-13 legislative session. The information is an update since 2002 with regard to the change in the establishment of Directorate grade posts. I'd like to remind members that if you have any direct or pecuniary interest in relation to the items discussed today, you should declare your interest under Section 83A of the Rules of Procedure and disclose the nature of the interest. I'd like to draw members' attention to the provision of Rule 84 in relation to voting on a matter with direct pecuniary interest. Information paper ECI bracket 2012-13-6 and ECI 8 and 9. We are going to discuss these 3 papers. The administration earlier on provided ECI 6 listing the proposed creation, deletion of Directorate posts in 2012-13, and the administration, Ms. Emily Lau wants to discuss the paper, and therefore the administration has also responded by sending in paper ECI 8 as supplementary information. Members may also refer to information paper ECI 9. These papers provide the approved changes to the Directorate establishment since 2002, and also the implication or impact of the 2 proposals on the establishment of the Directorate grade. The administration will consult the relevant panels before submitting the proposals to the ESC. To answer members' questions, we have the Deputy Secretary of Financial Services and Treasury, Ms. Leung, and also Mr. Mack, Deputy Secretary of the Civil Service. Questions from members? Dr. K.K. Kwok. Now we are we on paper ECI 8? Now we are concerned about a D3 non-civil service post in the CPU. As you know, CPU is really a mess. It really isn't living up to its name. Ms. Cole, this is a new post to accommodate Ms. Cole is very controversial. And recently, the research fund is now put under the CPU. In fact, the research fund is for academic research. The CPU doesn't have any terms of reference, and there is no accountability at all. Under such circumstances, if a post is to be created in the CPU, it is a waste of money. It's also irresponsible. But I don't know why. I don't know whether the CPU has been invited to respond. Now, when we study the creation of this post, I have strong reservation. Unless the administration has ample justification in terms of its work, and unless there is any consensus in the community, I think allowing such a post will not be beneficial at all to the CPU and the governance of the SARG. Is there anybody from the CPU? Chairman, if I may make a brief response. At the Public Service Panel on the 19th of November, the CPU explained to members their proposals, and members gave a lot of comment to the CPU. And upon members' views, the CPU is now considering how to respond to the views of members. Now, when they are to create any post, they will have to come back to the ESC and explain to members once again their proposal and also respond to the views given at the panel meeting. And members then will have a chance to discuss the issue. The Chairman. Now, since there were divided views in the Public Service Panel, shouldn't the matter be discussed by the Public Service Panel and the Constitutional Affairs Panel before they come to us? Usually, there was the established practice of giving a briefing to a panel before bringing the matter up at the ESC. But that was only for non-controversial subjects. Now, this is a very controversial subject, and there are a lot of criticisms on this proposal. I think the proposal should be brought before the panel first. Otherwise, it's meaningless to have the matter brought before the panel in the past. And this is also a disrespect towards the panel if the matter is not brought back to them. In fact, the panel made a lot of proposal to the CPU and made a lot of views to the CPU. The CPU has the duty to respond. Generally, the department or the CPU, department concerned or CPU, will have to provide in detail the views of the panel during the consultation, and also gives its response. I've heard Mr. Kwok's view, and I will refer that view to the CPU for consideration. Ms. Emily Lau. Thank you, Chairman. I propose to discuss this paper. The administration has produced a paper on the proposed creation deletion of posts. I welcome that. Just like the legislative program at the beginning of a session that enables members to be mentally prepared. Now, from the paper, you can see that there are altogether 25 additions of 12 permanent directorate posts. They are all directorate posts. 7 supernumerary directorate posts, an extension of 6 supernumerary directorate posts. The FS came and said that the external economy was in a turmoil and we should be very careful. A few years ago, we told the administration that if they wanted to create a post, they should delete one post. That was the one-for-one arrangement. After a few years, there has been no such discipline. It seems that they can get whatever they want. They proposed 27. Now you had a meeting with us, Mr. Chairman, on the remuneration for members' assistants. We asked for a better package, but the proposal was not accepted by the administration. Some members would say, if you didn't accept our proposal, then we would reject your proposal. And the chairman said that we better not did something unjust if they did something unjust to us. So the chairman is of the view that they are doing something unjust. Now, you are now forecasting the creation of 27 posts, including an extension. I think it's just a sort of a bargain. Now, the 2 posts of the CPU, we are against it. Whether the 2 are bouncers on behalf of Xu Jinbo or the Central Strategic or the CPU. The chairman of the Public Service Panel, Mrs. Yip, agreed that there seemed to be a change in the function of the CPU, and she is also of the view that the CPU should go back to the relevant panels to discuss the functions before adding the post. Now, Mr. Siu wants to get bouncers to be tools of political tools, and also to do cyber monitoring. Now, in fact, Mrs. Carrie Lam came to us and said that there was no change, but people said that she can be ignored and they will just continue to do what they've planned. Are there new functions? Are they going to get somebody, Ms. Cole, to look at the appointment of 3,000 or so posts to advisory committees and advisory bodies? I just want to know whether the administration will go back to the Constitutional Affairs Panel, which is the most appropriate panel, on whether there is any change in structure, in functions, whether the system has been overturned, or the system has been subverted. Now, concerning this one-for-one arrangement, if you look at paper 9, we have a paper from January 2002 up to now. Perhaps the administration can help me. If you look at the right-handmost corner, that's the D2 post. In 2002, 1,433 civil servants. In 2012, 4th of December, 1,402, a reduction in number. But this year, there is an increase of so many. And you tell me that there is no deletion. These 25 posts are additions, purely additions. And as for J and JOs, an increase of 10. And many people have been complaining about the listing. In fact, the chairman, your constituents are very concerned. Many cases have been waiting in the queue for trial. There are over 30 J and JO posts. And there is also another issue. Page 4, a D3 post. And then there is also a D2 post. They are doing the same thing for integration with the mainland. Chairman, this may not be the appropriate juncture to discuss such details, but is it really necessary to add such posts? We are all all being asked for tightening the belt. How can they increase so many posts? Mr. Mack. With regard to the creation of posts, I would like to give you the following information. In ECI 6, we mentioned the expected created posts. 14 permanent posts, 12 are related to the administration, and 12 are the civil servants, and 2 are J and JOs. And there are 8 supernumerary posts. At the same time, we propose to delete 8 supernumerary directorate posts in this year. So in terms of this year, there are additions and deletions, but there is a net increase, and Ms. Lau is right. Concerning the proposal by members, which which was a one-for-one arrangement. One addition should be matched by one deletion, and the administration has already produced a paper to explain our position. With regard to the creation for a post, we have to conduct a very careful assessment beforehand. The question is whether there is an actual need in terms of operation, and whether the creation of such a post is justified. This is the first point. The second point is that in the creation of such a post, the relevant department and bureau will have to consider whether they can redeploy resources within the bureau or department in order to absorb the newly created jobs. In fact, we have been implementing this very strictly. As for procedure, there are two levels. There should be a very careful scrutiny made by the relevant department and bureau and also by the CSB. And if we think the proposal is justified, then the proposal will be put before the LegCo. And the LegCo has its own panel, and then the ESC, and then the FC to look at the proposal. So there is already a rather strict mechanism to consider each and every case and see whether it is justified. And we believe that is an appropriate way to deal with the creation of posts arising from new tasks.
我哋前幾年開始有個機制咧，就係而家就已經開始做緊㗎啦，就係話。
And in fact, we already have a mechanism in place. That is, at the first meeting of each LegCo session, we will submit the forecast of creation and deletion proposal to the LegCo so that the panel will have a full picture and will know the number of creation and deletion and have a full picture of the full number of the civil service establishment. And subject to approval, we also submit any implication to the panel. So the members will have a full picture of the number of creations and deletions, and will also know the implication of the proposal. Sorry to interrupt. Before you continue, because we have a lot of members waiting to speak, so I will give 5 minutes to each member. Chairman, just a simple point. I don't quite agree with the practice of the administration because we cannot look at the full picture. Now, as for paper number 8, all of the proposals are creation proposals. So, rather, I would like you to tell us when you're going to submit them. And is it correct that you will have a net increase of 25 posts, or is the 8 deletions included? As for the post in CPU, I hope the Secretary will pass on our message. That is, you have to go to the panel to explain whether the structure and the terms of reference of CPU have been changed before you make any creation proposal. You should do that instead of coming to this subcommittee and trying to break through the threshold. So tell us whether it's a net increase of post. Thank you for the comment. I'm sorry for any confusion created because of paper 8. In fact, paper 8 is the supplementary document to paper 6. In fact, we have 2 points to make, that is, first, the creation and the That is the 12 permanent directorate posts and the supernumerary directorate post included. As for deletion, we have already covered it in paper 6 in enclosure 2. You can see at the beginning of enclosure 2, these are about the creations, but then later on, the enclosure is about the deletion. That's why I will say we have already covered creation and deletion as well. So that's why first of all, I have to apologize if paper 8 creates any confusion. What about the number? Right, the number of deletion, 8 supernumerary post. 8 supernumerary posts will be deleted in this year. So in 8 out 8, is that correct? 18 permanent posts will be created and 8 supernumerary directorate posts will be deleted and 8 supernumerary posts will also be deleted. So a net increase of 14 posts. Next, Mr. Leung Kai-cheng. Thank you, Chairman. I want to talk about ECI 2012-13-9. Now you give us the headcounts, tell us the number of creation and deletion. Now you're just going through the motion with this paper. I wonder if the administration can give us more detailed information as to the numbers. That is, how much have you spent? Because looking at the headcounts is just meaningless. I want to know how much you spend on the creation of the post and how much you save by the deletion. I want to know the number, the figure, because with this figure, it will be meaningful for us to look at your proposal. Now, my second question is to follow up on questions raised by Emily Lau and Dr. Kwok concerning the creation of a post in CPU. To be fair, since you have so many views expressed on the 2 panels, I think the administration should respond to all the views raised in the 2 panels. And I think you should only come to this subcommittee when you have the expressed views at the 2 panels that you can submit the proposal here. Now, you adopt this practice of answering our questions in the paper. I don't think it's appropriate. I think you should rather go and answer the questions raised at the 2 panels before you come to the ESC. It's only under these circumstances that we will consider your proposal. Thank you. Mr. Mack? Ms. Leung, thank you for the question raised. For ECI 9, we have already got lots of creations and deletions between 2002 and 2012. Now, of course, we have gone through the Finance Committee for all these creations and deletions. And if you're asking for such information, I do need some time to tidy up the information before submitting that. And for the upcoming post, after we've got the endorsement in the various panels, we also have to go to the Finance Committee to explain the financial implication. So, if you're asking for the financial implication for each and every post in every year, then we have to tidy up the information first. Next, Mrs. Regina Ip. I want to talk about paper 8. Now, for the resumption of HOS, 4D1 post will be created in HD. Now, we have stopped the creation of HOS for 6 years. For many years, since 2003, and since then, have they deleted any post? And if not, then how come they're asking for the creation of 4 posts if they haven't been deleted? Now, secondly, about CPU, because it's such a controversial post, I don't think it should come to this subcommittee. Rather, it should go to the panels instead of this subcommittee. Now, looking at the paper, I remember earlier this year the Housing Department submitted a paper to ESC about the deletion of certain posts, Directorate posts, because of the suspension of HOS. So there were some deletions because of the suspension of HOS, but then we're asking for creations now. Still, we can pass on Mrs. Ip's views to HD so that they can give you a full picture of the creation and deletion of posts. We have to look at whether the deletions are related to HOS. Now, you're going to resume HOS and you're asking for the creation of 4 posts. So what about the existing manpower? What are they doing actually? Because you cannot simply asking for creation because you're going to resume HOS. Now, as for CPU post, we will pass on the views expressed to CPU and the policy bureaus to follow up on these views. Yes, we'll pass on your message. Next, Mr. Wong Kwok Kin. Thank you, Chairman. I think we should adopt a macro approach instead of looking at a particular post. The LASHCO is very concerned about whether there is any unnecessary expansion of the civil service because the post involves money, public money. And for unionists, we are also concerned whether they're going to create Directorate posts only and leaving the frontline staff working unnecessarily hard. The population is rising and public is expecting quality service from the civil service. So we're asking for more support and more services from the administration. That's why we understand there will be a need to expand the civil service. For the in-out and out-one approach, I don't think is something that we should stick to rigidly. I think we should be flexible. I think we should look at the proposal case by case to see whether there is sufficient justification. If yes, we will endorse the proposal. If not, we will ask the administration to go back and reconsider the proposal. And in our discussion, we should not be sentimental. We should not target or attack certain departments or units. I don't want to give the wrong impression to the public to think that we are just like ignorant women. Well, you can praise women, but I will have to remind you we have sexual discrimination ordinance in place. Well, if you want to attack women, you have to attack men as well. Right, yes, like ignorant men as well, who are shouting at each other down the street. Well, if you're going to engage in an argument, you have to support your argument with grounds. That's why you cannot be unreasonable. That's why I say we have to look at the proposal case by case. We should not be negative at the very beginning. I hope the administration will be well prepared when they come to the panels or the subcommittee when they're asking for our support. they should not just try to muddle through. So this is what I would like to say to the administration. Mr. Mack or Ms. Leung? Let me respond first. Thank you for the views expressed by Mr. Wong. Concerning the creation of post, we already gave you our views that we will see whether we have sufficient justification and whether we can redeploy our staff internally before we come to ask for creation of post. As for figures, number of Directorate posts, we have a net decrease. We decrease 5 permanent posts, Directorate posts, and 14 supernumerary Directorate posts. So you can see we have been very stringent in our proposal.
We'll certainly continue to work with the departments and bureaus, and we'll adopt the same principle in dealing with the creation posts very carefully. Next is Mr. Dennis Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. With regard to the creation, Mr. Kwok Wai-Kang, with regard to the creation of 7 posts, supernumerary posts, there is the creation of a chief labor officer in the labor department as to his or she is to follow up the standard working hours. If it's just a supernumerary post, is it adequate? Can it be a permanent post? I think the issue of standard working hours is a very controversial topic, and it takes time to discuss the matter. And there are also changes to various industries after the up and running of the standard working hours. There are changes all the time. Is it possible to change it to a permanent post? Mr. Mack, thank you. And we will refer this view to the Labor Department, but I can give you some information on this. If you may refer to the enclosure, the creation of the post is for 3 years. It is to work with the research, to work with the task force in the first 3 years. So the creation post is for the work of this task force, and it is for 3 years. But after 3 years, we will consider whether there is any follow-up work and the nature of follow-up work and what kind of support is needed. Then the Labor Department will consider the circumstances then and propose to extend or add or delete the post. And the next time now, Ms. Emily Lau. Chairman, is still on this paper. We support standard working hours. Whether if you create a post, it shows your determination. We hope that it can balance the views of the community. I don't know whether you went to have a meal with C.Y. Leung, and it was said that members had a heated debate on this item. I don't know how heated it was. We hope the administration will introduce universal retirement protection, but we have not seen any creation post of that. That's a very serious issue. Now you create a post to deal with standard working hours and provide secretarial work. We support that. But does it mean that at least in this year you have no intention to promote that or implement that? I don't know whether the Secretary is aware of that. Mr. Mack. Well, it's difficult for me to answer the question on behalf of the LWB. As for the supernumerary post of the labor officer, on the 18th of December, the Labor Department will consult the Bureau, and members may therefore put questions to the Bureau at the panel meeting. But universal retirement protection is not the task only limited to the LWB. If you need a new policy, if you are to implement a new policy, then you really need the bodies to do the job. But if you don't create a post, then how can you say that you're going to work on it? Well, Ms. Lau, we are not discussing the retirement protection policy. We are talking about creation posts. I think it is discussed. It should be discussed at the panel. And if they need to create any post, they should bring it back to us. Okay, I hope they will bring the matter back to the Bureau. The next item is that the Security Bureau proposes to retain a supernumerary post, staff grade C D2, for 2 years from the 17th February 2013 to 16th February 2015 to continue to work on combating drug abuse problem. The administration on the 6th of November consulted the security panel and today to answer members' questions we have Mr. John Lee, the Secretary for Security, and Mrs. Erica Hoy, Commissioner for Narcotics, and Ms. Mandy Wong, Principal Assistant Secretary for Security. And Mr. Kwok Kim, Chairman of the Security Panel, is not a member of the ESC, and therefore he does not attend our meeting today. And according to the information provided by the Secretary, I will highlight the discussion of the panel. Now, with regard to the proposal of retaining a supernumerary post of AO Staff Grade C in the Narcotics Division of Security Bureau, the panel discussed a proposal on the 16th of November. Members were of the view that the administration should strengthen its efforts on identifying hidden drug abusers and assess the effectiveness of other anti-narcotics tasks, in particular the drug testing program, the school drug testing program. And in principle, members support the proposal to be put before the ESC. Members who have any questions may now raise questions. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question in relation to paragraph 29 of the paper. It is about the school drug testing program. It seems that it was a success. It is a voluntary scheme, and it said that some schools are concerned about it, and you still want to get the body to implement it. I just want to know how many schools have not joined and how many schools have joined. And for those who have not joined the healthy school program or the school drug testing program, then why people have concerns, why they don't join it. Is there a school in Mui Wo which is for drug detoxification? Is it related to this dealing with the drug treatment of young people among young abusers? And if that one, can you also speak on that? Is it doing well? If I may answer the question. I thank Ms. Lau for the question. Concerning the healthy school program with a drug testing component, now we've talked to the schools. Some schools are concerned that there is the voluntary drug testing element. Now we do raise the awareness of students towards drugs, and this is one of the programs. And the schools, some of the schools are concerned that if they participate in the drug testing program, that may have a labeling effect, and that may show the schools in bad light. We will continue to explain the matter to the schools, and we will encourage them to know more about the achievements of other schools who have joined this program. In the coming 1 or 2 years, we will work through the participating schools and then encourage other schools to know more about the program. As for the school year of 2012-13, 51 schools have already, or rather 53 schools have joined the HSPDT. As for the achievements, in 2011, basing on the trial scheme in 2009-10 and 2010-11 in Taipo, we launched this HSPDT in 2011-12. We are now consolidating the information provided to us by the schools and the NGOs. We will soon get the results. Our consultant conducted a study on the trial scheme in terms of the response of the schools and in terms of the awareness of drugs among students. There have been an improvement. As for the school in Muiwo, I think she is referring to the Zhengshan College. In fact, in Chimawan, Harking, Chimawan, they have a school premises. And last year, April, members visited the place and members agreed that we would help them to upgrade the facilities of the institution. Part of the institution is providing service to young people to help them to quit drugs and also to correct their behavior. And at the same time, it is also providing education to the students. We are trying to help them to find a suitable school premises. And the matter, I think, has to be followed by the education panel. Next, Mr. Chung Kwok Pan. Fighting drugs is a long-term task. I just want to know why it's just a supernumerary post rather than a permanent post. You have to come before us once every 2 years. Why is it so? Who's to answer the question? Now, we have such an arrangement because we know that the administration has to be very cautious in using its resources. You can see that we are here just proposing to extend the PAS2 post for 2 years. And in the list of duties, there are 8 of them. They can be categorized into 3 major kinds: rehabilitation and drug treatment. Number 2, the drug testing program at schools. And third, a consultation paper on community drug testing. With regard to the 8 tasks, in terms of treatment and rehabilitation, is a long-term task. But as for the consultation on the community-based drug testing scheme, we believe that a 2-year consultation will lead us to a stage for making a decision. Next year, we will launch a consultation exercise, and then we will analyze the views and make some recommendations. And such tasks should be completed within 2 years. As for the future direction, should it be by way of legislation or other means to identify hidden drug abuses in an early phase, we will form a view by then, and then we can decide on whether such a post can be made permanent or should only be a supernumerary post. We have to consider whether certain tasks will come to an end. Now, because of the community-based drug testing scheme, we believe that the consultation will come to an end within 2 years. Other tasks are continuous ones. But how heavy the workload is, we will gauge it within the coming 2 years. If we have a permanent post, we will have to be sure whether such duties and workload are regular and for the long term. We need to be cautious. Thank you. Next, Ms. Starry Lee.
秘書長過去嘅工作嘅喺
I want to follow up on the work of the Secretary. In enclosure 2 of paper 11, you have the duties. Second point, to monitor the drug abuse trends, to monitor and formulate necessary response to the threats posed by emerging drugs, including review of legislation. So what's the position and what have you done in the past regarding this, and have you identified which areas see the most serious spread of these drug problems? Sorry, Chairman, maybe the questions have already been discussed in the panel, but since I am not sitting on the security panel, I haven't asked such questions there. Thank you for the questions. For the second main duties of the PASD2, in fact, over the past few years, we have cross-departmental operations, for example, with police and CNE, as well as the Department of Health. We monitor the information we collect, including the global trend. This July, we had an amendment on the Dangerous Drugs Ordinance. We amended the schedule. That is, we add more substances to be regulated in the schedule. We will continue with our efforts in this regard with the support of LACHCO. In recent years, we have adopted this zero-tolerant approach. If we see there might be some new drugs coming in the picture, we adopt a proactive approach. And one of the examples is that we add further substances in the schedule. So what are these newly added substances? Several ones. For example, one of which is a kind of Mexican drugs. And over the past few years, we have added several substances. If Ms. Lee is interested in this, we can make available the newly added substances to Ms. Lee. That is the newly added substances in the past 2 years. Perhaps you can invite members to go to anti-drugs exhibition so we can have a better idea. 2 more questions for you. As for the areas subject to serious drug problems, we have information from the Central Registry of Drug Abuse. We have identified certain areas, for example, in the northeastern, northwestern NT, like Yuen Long and Tai Po, which see a rather serious drug problem. We have liaisoned with these areas. As for youth drug abuse, in the past few years, we have done a lot in this regard, and we have seen some fruitful results. From 2009 up to last year, the total population of drug abusers, whether we're talking about existing drug abusers or new drug abusers, we see a drop of 20% in the population. Those under 21, we see a substantial decrease, that is by 40%. Next, Mr. Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. My question is similar to Mr. Cheng's. The Undersecretary has answered the question partly, but now we create this supernumerary post. It's a supernumerary post because his task will focus mainly on the school-based drug test, the community-based drug test, and you're going to review the work after 2 years. But his task will cover treatment and rehabilitation services, which is a long-term task. For PAS Narcotics 1, he is already heavily loaded in terms of workload. That's why I wonder how come you're not making this particular one a permanent post. I wonder if the administration is committed to long-term anti-drug operations, and are you really committed to helping those drug abusers to quit drugs? Thank you for the question. I've tried to explain to you with the help of the 8 tasks listed in the paper. We propose an extension of 2 years. As for whether we make it a permanent post, we have to look at the workload of the narcotics division as a whole. We propose an extension of 2 years. We also have to see the workload of the other PAS after 2 years. We see whether the workload of this PAS will be reduced after 2 years. Why are we saying that at present he has heavy workload? Is because he has to deal with the legislation and for anti-money laundering, counter-financing of terrorism measures pursuant to the recommendations of Financial Action Task Force. So we have to see whether his task of the PASN1 will reach an end or a certain point by 2 years. I think the approach we adopt now will be beneficial to public interest and the administration. As for the task of the PAS, I'll defer to the Narcotics Division. Thank you for the question. The Undersecretary has told you the division of labor of the two PAS. And you can see for PASN1, mainly his tasks are quite to deal with regular tasks. We expect there will be quite a heavy workload in terms of legislation for PAS1. For PASN2, he has to deal with the public consultation for community-based drug testing and treatment and rehabilitation services as well. Apart from these two, we hope we can provide more assistance to drug treatment and rehabilitation centers. Some of them have not reached the licensing requirements. So we expect in the coming 2 years, the PAS will have to do a lot in this front. Now, when we make the treatment and rehabilitation services regular ones, then the tasks in this regard can be passed on to the PAS1. Now, the administration does not simply rely on the Narcotics Division in combating drugs. We also rely on other resources. Next round, Ms. Emily Lau. Just now, the Commissioner for Narcotics tells us they are consolidating the results. I hope you will pass on the tidy-up results to us later. Now, she told us 53 schools are involved in the drug testing scheme. Some of them are worried about the labeling effect. Yes, that's correct, but that's not true for all the schools. So, do you know how many other schools also have this problem? And because of that, they are not willing to take part in the scheme. And do you have any plans to persuade them to join the scheme? In the coming 2 years, we will continue to liaise with the schools, and we have already started, in fact, the discussion with some schools. For those participating schools, they are very positive. Some of them ask us not to do it on a yearly basis. So in our review, we will also see how we can enhance the scheme. As for assistance to school, we will organize experience sharing sessions to alleviate their worries. Apart from that, we also have a lot of preventive measures rolling out in schools. For example, we give resources to NGOs to go to schools to do preventive measures at schools. We also give resources to frontline social workers and to enhance parents' knowledge about drugs. So we have measures on that in many aspects. I'm asking the administration if they know how many schools are worried so they do not join the school. And you can put the fruitful results in the paper, right? As for schools reluctant to join the scheme, in fact, we mentioned that in past papers, but we do not have a table as to which schools are actually participating or will participate, because we think we can persuade them through our liaison. As for review, actually, we have just received the review reports, so we may not be able to include the reviews in paper submitted to the Finance Committee. But once we have consolidated the results, we will try our best to submit the results to the security panel so that they can follow up on the matter. Now, you're asking for a creation of this post. That's why we want to know the reviews, the results of the reviews. And you have already collected the feedbacks. If you tell us it's successful, then we will give you the in-principle support. How come everything is in a mess with you? In fact, we are waiting for the reviews of the from the NGOs and the schools. And we have only just collected the reviews from these parties. As for the overall results, we make reference with the pilot scheme in Taipo, the trial scheme in Taipo. In fact, we have already submitted papers to the security panel earlier this year, which are about the preventive measures at schools and the trial schemes at school. The schools and the students give us positive feedbacks. As for papers to be submitted to the Finance Committee, we can put in the feedbacks or results from the typo trial scheme. We can also give you the feedback from the healthy school programs.
Okay, the Commissioner, please provide as much information as possible in response to Ms. Lau's question, and that will facilitate the application for funding. Even if you don't have the complete picture, you can still provide further information afterwards. If members don't have other questions, I will put the proposal of this paper to the vote. With those in favor of the proposals in EC 2012 bracket 11, please raise your hands. There is no objection. I think the question is agreed by a majority of members who have voted, and the proposal is passed. We now move on to agenda item number 3, and that is paper EC 2012-13 bracket 12. The creation of 2 supernumerary posts in the Chief Secretary for Administration's office. First, 1 AO Staff Grade B D3 and 1 AO Staff Grade C D2 from the 1st of April 2013 to the 30th of June 2017. And these officers are responsible to lead and manage the policy coordination unit. The CS has already consulted the House Committee on the 23rd of November. We have Ms. Kitty Choi, Director of Administration, Ms. Helen Tang, Deputy Director of Administration, and Ms. Jane Lee, PAS for Labour and Welfare, attending our meeting. Mr. Andrew Leung is not a member of the ESC and therefore he is not able to attend today's meeting. I will therefore brief members on the salient points of discussion. The House Committee on 23rd of November discussed the proposal and members generally support the setting up of the PPCU to assist the CS4A to implement interdepartmental, inter-bureau policies, in particular poverty alleviation and population. The members asked questions on the scope of work of the PPCU and the studies to be conducted, the work of the Commission on Poverty, and also the membership and also major tasks of the Population Steering Committee on Population Policy. Members have no objection to the administration submitting the paper to the ESC. Right. Any questions from members? 4 in the line, and they are Ms. Emily Lau, Mrs. Regina Yip, Mr. Tang Ka-pio, and Mr. Chung Kok-ban, and also Ms. Starry Lee. Okay. We are running out of time, so 5 minutes each. Ms. Emily Lau. Thank you, Chairman. If a certain arrangement can enable the administration to work more efficiently and enhance coordination, we support that. We read reports from the Director of Audit, and the reports said that the departments didn't talk to each other. I think this paper is working towards the direction of promoting coordination. We are very concerned about the universal retirement protection. It requires interdepartmental coordination. Can these two posts help? And also the universal access program. It is a good thing with regard to the provision of escalators and lifts. As for barrier access, it's a very broad topic, and can this group deal with that? Recently, we went before the UN committee, and we discussed a lot of issues on the rights of the disabled. And I urge the setting up of a subcommittee to deal with that, but you oppose, Mr. Chairman. Now, it is said that under the Development Bureau, that is the Development Opportunity Office. Members said that it was good, and there was also the Land Development Committee, and the administration was asked to do it, but usually when you ask them, they don't do it deliberately. And I really don't know how to deal with you. Now, the problem is that we are not able to find enough land, and people are really anxious. Why such good things are not continued? And why is this so strange? Ms. Choi, let me answer the questions one by one. With regard to retirement protection, these two posts will help to do the policy coordination. At a special House Committee meeting, the CSOA said that under the Poverty Commission, there would be 6 subcommittees and 6 task forces, and one will be the retirement protection. And the CSOA will be the chairman. Different members will be incorporated into this committee. Therefore, the matter will be looked after. The 2 officers will draft discussion papers, consolidated views, and collect views. It's hoped that an important policy direction will be formulated. As for barrier-free access, the major task of these two posts is to do interdepartmental, inter-bureau coordination. There are two major items which require high-level coordination, and they are helping the poor and dealing with population policy. If there are other issues of common concern, if it is under the coordination of the CSOA, then this unit will also help. The example is given. This example is given in the paper because we want to show that this term of the government is service-oriented, and we are concerned about the well-being of the people. The setting up of the unit is to deal with helping the poor and to deal with population policy. As for the Development Opportunities Office, or DOO, the DOO is not tasked to find land. The DOO is to help NGOs. If NGOs if NGOs have programs that are in line with government policy and require coordination, then they can approach the DOO. With regard to the DOO, the 9 posts are supernumerary posts, and all these have all lapsed. When interdepartmental coordination is needed, when it is about a specific issue, when it's in line with government policy, then should it create posts which had been in the past without any justification? Of course not. Now we need to consider the matter case by case. Now, one successful example was the conversion of a vacant school into a hostel, the movement of the Maritime Museum to Pier 8, and converting industrial buildings into culture and art center. Now, these were the achievement of the DOO. There was a body of 9 officers, head by an AO staff grade B, but we need to be concerned about manpower, and we therefore only embark on a limited proposal. Mrs. Regina Yip, concerning the Steering Committee on Population Policy. The administration had a history of dealing with population policy in a piecemeal basis. In 2002-2003, it was chaired by Donald Tsang. He introduced piecemeal measures. One was a tax on foreign domestic helpers. I don't understand there was such a tax. It's hoped that through the tax, money could be used to train up local workers and also to reduce the number of foreign domestic helpers. The administration has to consider the implication of foreign domestic helpers on our population, though they are not our permanent residents. Now, afterwards, the committee lapsed, and then afterwards, in 2010-11, there was also the reconvening of the committee, and then there were piecemeal measures concerning aging in the or retiring in the mainland, so on and so forth. Concerning the tax on domestic helpers, how are you going to deal with that? The moratorium will come to an end July next year. Would it be a piecemeal approach? You only have piecemeal measures. You need a long-term population policy. In Shenzhen, they are to control population and to upgrade their population. In the long term, are you going to formulate policy to upgrade the quality of population? Thank you for the question. Ms. Ip is concerned about domestic help, the tax on foreign domestic helpers. It is a piece of subsidiary legislation, and the LWD is handling the matter, and when time is appropriate, the relevant panel will be consulted. As for a long-term population policy,
大家就係其實要邁向，要令到香港可以邁向。
Now for Hong Kong's long-term development, we do need long-term population policy. The last administration has done a lot of preliminary efforts, and there were 10 recommendations made available earlier this year. We propose a reformed SCPP. It's a different one. We include experts, professionals, and academics on the SCPP because we want to engage the public at an early stage and to incorporate their views. We also have to work for the better development of Hong Kong. We have had the first meeting, this SCPP, and in January next year, we will hold our first meeting. Our goal is to upgrade our population and to have long-term population policy. We hope we will be able to come up with action plans for short, medium, and long term. We also have to look at the implication on public service because of aging population and how well the new arrivals integrate into society. Another focus is the situation of ethnic minorities and other migrants. We have a low birth rate in Hong Kong. If we want to keep a vibrant population to a certain extent, we do need to rely on immigrants. We also have to look at how we can attract overseas and mainland talents to Hong Kong for better development. Even though we haven't had our first meeting, we have our goals in place with this revamped SCPP. Time's up, right? Well, you can ask the question, but make it brief. I think you should make reference with Singapore. They have a population policy. For example, they have a goal of a population of 6 million, and they have goals as to what kind of talents they're going to attract, for example, engineers, and they do not simply rely on immigrants. Rather, they help the middle class, for example, give incentives to them to encourage them to have babies. They have family planning. They also have land planning. For example, policies for 7 million people. So this is a suggestion from Mrs. Ip. Next, Mr. Tan Ka-Piu. Thank you, Chairman. Just now, members mentioned certain points under population policy. I want to turn to certain requirements when you have population policy. At present, we have a high employment rate in Hong Kong, but most people are engaged in the finance sector and service sector. That is, white-collar jobs. Now, at present, even for university graduates, they are at the junior grades of management ranks. We have got complaints against some big corporates. They open up a new department and they hire mainland talents, mainland university graduates. But locally, we have a lot of graduates from the degree programs and associate degree programs. You're asking for the opening of 2 posts. They have a lot of tasks in hand. For example, coordination, collaboration. And what sort of measures will go down to PPCU? Now, you say population policy is one of them. Do you have sufficient resources to deal with this large issue? You have a post of D4 post. It is to work with NGOs and private sector. Under COP, you have this very clear post, but then for the PPCU, I think you will cover more. But then under PPCU, you're asking for post of a lower rank. How come? Thank you, Mr. Tang, for your views about the different job natures and the immigration of talents to Hong Kong. We will certainly pay more attention to it in our upcoming population policy. As for your second question, for the former Commission on Poverty, it started from scratches in coming up with certain indexes about poverty, but the revamped one will be chaired by the CS. For the PPCU, it will be for coordination and collaboration. We will also be responsible for putting information collected to focus. Now, members may think we have a small manpower under this unit. It's because we're not responsible for research. We will work with other departments, for example, the Labor and Welfare Bureau. It's not the case that since we're responsible for poverty alleviation, then we will exclude the Labor and Welfare Bureau. We will still work with the Census and Statistics Department, Government, Economics, and the Central Policy Unit. We can outsource research to these departments. So we have a very clear mechanism. As for future coordination, Ms. Emily Lau has already given some suggestion. The current administration set up this unit for steering of policy. But for the coming 2 years, we will focus on the 2 tasks mentioned. Now, if we had this unit when the sea tragedy happened in Lama, we could certainly have been able to deal with coordination of different departments. I agree that we need this unit because there is a lack of communication between departments and bureaus at present. So if we have a unit to coordinate different departments and bureaus, I think is good. Mrs. Ip mentioned the population policy. From what I can see, it seems you are going to take care of issues like providing assistance to elderly people retired in the mainland and giving assistance to mainland babies born to Hong Kong babies born to mainland women living in Hong Kong. Now, poverty alleviation and population policy are long-term tasks. 10 years on, we will have a seriously aging population. Up to now, you're asking for the post to exist until the 30th of June 2017. How come you're not proposing to have permanent post? Because poverty and population policy are long-term tasks. And that's the same for interdepartmental coordination. But it seems that the post will lapse after this term. Thank you for the question. Just like the paper on the post in Narcotics division, we are also being cautious in proposing to have this post from April 2013 to June 2017. But it doesn't mean that the post will lapse after June 2017, and we will not continue with the existing works. Now, it all depends on the progress of the work. If we have already got the short, medium, long-term goals in place and we have already got the monitoring system in place, I believe at the end of this term, we will also ask for the extension of the post in accordance with the mechanism. And we'll also see whether D2 post will be appropriate and whether we need more manpower. Yes, we will closely monitor that. Yes, being prudent is good. But then I also think it's important for you to continue with the existing work. If you don't know who is going to head the next administration, and with this uncertainty, maybe the continuity will be disrupted and your effort will be wasted. Well, no matter who the CE is, I think it's important to have continuity. And for the sake of continuity, I don't think the LegCo will oppose to any proposal for permanent post. Ms. Starry Lee, I want to know more about the scope of population policy. I completely agree. I go along with Mrs. Ip. I remember when Stephen Lam came to report on the population policy, I told him that Hong Kong did not have any population policy in the past. It seems to me the focus is simply on giving assistance to elderly people retired on the mainland and to give help to the Hong Kong babies born to mainlanders in Hong Kong. It's so limited. Now, I agree with what's stated in the paper. The most important thing is to upgrade our population. Even Macau, when I visited it, the relevant department gave me a paper on population policy. So even for a small place like Macau, they have a population policy. So I hope we will not be so fragmented in Hong Kong in this regard. I want to turn to page 5 about the implication on Hong Kong because of aging population. Now, I hope you can tell me which unit will be responsible for this.
It isn't just the aging population public service, it's also about retirement protection. And there is also flexible retirement age in view of a tight labor market in Hong Kong. And welfare benefits for the elderly are also a problem. Now, why some benefits are given to elderly only from 65 onwards, yet some elderly have retired at 60 and they are very mobile, they have a lot of social activities, and yet they don't get any benefit, in particular with regard to traveling. How are you going to remove these anomalies or inconsistencies? Will it be done by this committee or by which committee? The Director. Thank you for the question. With regard to the implication of aging population public service, we will look at healthcare service and the need for home care and long-term care, and whether Hong Kong can afford that. That's the primary task. As for other tasks, I think I have to wait for the committee to consider. As for homes for the elderly, caring at home, and healthcare service for the elderly, they are the items that we will certainly discuss, we will certainly look into. As for flexible retirement age, according to the population policy report published in May, there was a certain coverage on that, and in fact, the committee, the population policy steering committee, in the past had done quite a lot on this. We will continue to listen to the reports of relevant departments in this regard, and if we are to raise the age of retirement, we will have to consider how to go forward. As for inconsistencies in terms of welfare services for the elderly, different departments and bureaus providing welfare, but there is no comprehensive coordination. The CSOA and relevant bureaus and departments looking at this and see if there can be any consolidation or simplification on the provision service, so that people can have a bird's eye view of all the services provided. I think it is good. It's a good thing to have the efficiency unit look into that. But I hope this committee will also look at the steering committee will look into that. The inconsistency is rather broad in this regard. Certainly, the CSOA has asked the efficiency unit to conduct a study on that. When will there be a report? It will report to the Steering Committee on Population Policy. We need to conduct a stock taking before we can identify the deficiencies, and then we can plan our way forward. Next, Mr. Kenneth Leung. The Professional Commons supports the creation of these two posts to coordinate the work of the Committee on Poverty, Commission on Poverty, and Steering Committee on Population Policy, but I'm afraid that the unit may not have enough work to do. The 10 proposals of the SCPP are not forward-looking and not broad enough to echo Mrs. Ip's view. I've seen the long-term plans of other countries in terms of population. I'm referring to para 11. The 10 proposals in our paper, population policy paper, didn't cover the long-term views or long-term plans which are present in other countries. Now by 2032, we may not have any. Our population will become rather old, and how can we improve our productivity? And are we aiming at unlimited economic growth, or are we aiming at the improvement in soft power? There are many issues we have to consider, but they are not in para 11. Say, in upgrading our quality of population, should we encourage more Hong Kong people to give birth to children, or do we need to import professionals and talents from overseas? In the coming 10 to 15 years, we'll have a very serious aging problem, and after 20 or 30 years, after the baby boomers were gone, maybe we will be very will live very long until 2050, but there is still the problem of enhancing our productivity. If I may ask you to look at the terms of reference of the steering committee's primary task is to study the change in population structure of Hong Kong in the coming 30 years and its impact on our economy. Aging population will affect public services, and we also need to look at creation of jobs and our economic growth. Are we going to have more and more white-collar jobs? Should we have some low-income jobs, or rather low-level jobs? That is something the SCPP will look into. As for the aging of our previous generation and the aging of this generation, we may that may be very different, and we have different skills. Now, the previous generation, the older generation, may not know a lot of technology, but our generation may have a better IT capability, and how will that impact on the aging population? These are the things we have to look into. I can tell you that apart from looking at economic changes and social changes, the SCPP will look into all these and formulate short, medium, and long-term measures. Since no members have further questions, I will put the proposal of the paper to the vote. With those in favor of the proposal in EC 2012-2013, number 12, please raise their hands. Thank you. I have not seen any objection. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of members who voted, and I declare that the motion passed. With regard to item 2, the proposal was made to the Finance Committee on the 11th of January 2013. I want to ask if members want to ask the Finance Committee to vote on the item individually at the Finance Committee. Well, since the Narcotics Commissioner said that she would provide more information. No, that's another issue. I'm talking about the CS4As. You mentioned the 2 papers. No, that is only the previous one has only 1 post, the commissioner. Of course, 1 post, not 10. Well, let me finish, Mr. Chairman. Last time I didn't ask for voting the item separately, and I'm not asking to do that now. But concerning the previous paper, the Commissioner says that she will provide certain information, but that will not be complete. She said that further information will be given to the security panel. And I accept that reluctantly, and I hope she can provide us with more comprehensive information. But I suggest that if she has provided information, and there is such a mechanism, if there is the FC paper and members find that the answer not applicable, I'm not asking for voting the item separately. Now, okay, I'll just wait and see the paper. Well, I'll put that on record then. All right, we have dealt with all the items on the agenda. Thank you very much.